Hi, this is Brandon Moon with Moonlit Fly Fishing. I want to welcome you tonight to our fly tying night, and tonight we're going to focus on a streamer we call the Midnight Sculpin. This sculpin's been lights out for us this year in a variety of different colors. Tonight we're going to be tying it in the most popular color, which is olive. So this pattern's tied using a sculpin head. This helps invert the fly so that it rides on the bottom. You can see the hook point up top here, and it's also going to get it down really fast, and it's going to help pull that head down so that it bobs up and down in the water just like a sculpin would, and makes it extremely lifelike. We fish this anywhere from size 4 all the way to size 10. Our most favorite and popular size that we've found is the size 8. We're able to fish this size 8 in our small tributary streams for large cutthroat, and even our medium-sized cutthroat with aggressive takes, and into our rivers. It's been extremely effective as well. So you can tie this in larger sizes using bigger helmets. This is the mini helmet in an olive color. So we're going to get started with this tonight. We're going to be using a size 8 Dohiku streamer hook on this. This is a barbless competition hook, so it's got a nice long hook point, very effective in holding your fish. For our thread tonight, we're going to be using Semperfli's Classic Wax in a 6/0, but we're going to be using black because the color is not going to show. So I'm going to start this thread at the halfway point on this, and I'm just going to start and go rearward to the bend of the hook. And the reason I start in the middle is because that's going to help let me know kind of where to stop as I'm wrapping my body. Okay, and I do this pattern a little different. I don't want to put my strip on this hook just as of yet. I'm going to wait just a little bit. So I like to give mine just a nice little realistic light color to the underbody. So I'm going to use this UV Polar chenille in a copper color in a medium size. I don't want a long strip, just about 4 maybe 5 inches for this fly, and that's because I don't want a lot of excess material as I'm twisting and creating a complex twist with some hackle fibers with this. So this is going to give me that undertone in my body of that light color. I'm going to use a dark olive hen saddle. I'm going to use the top of this. There's some nice big long fibered feathers, and that's going to add a little bit of fluff, movement, and bulk into this fly with this polar chenille. But it's going to actually blend that material in and give me a really nice tone to this fly. So I'm just going to strip the fuzzies off, and then I palmer that down. I've got a tie-in point. I'm going to tie that in. I'm going to be wrapping over all this, so I'm not trying to make it super clean. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now, to do this twist, you can see I've got some material in there already, and that's why I don't want a lot of excess as well. I'm going to take my gator jack tool from Loon, and I'm just going to put that in. Now I'm just going to twist. Okay, you can see that's twisting that. Now you can see from this angle how it's just fluffing that in, blending it together. I could use 2 hackle fibers on this, but I don't want to make that too bulky. Now I'm just going to take and kind of brush through that just a little bit, try and fluff those fibers out a little bit more. Now I'm going to take this gator jack tool. I'm going to take that little back part off, underneath part. I'm going to wrap and I'm going to palmer this. And I take that off just because it's heavier. It's easier to wrap and maneuver this without that being on there. You can see I'm palmering this every time, forcing all those fibers rearward by pulling them back and then wrapping kind of on, not directly on top of, but close to, on top of my previous wrap, pushing all of those fibers rearward. And I'm just going to do this all the way up to that halfway point, and then I'm going to tie it off. I'm going to pull all of these fibers rearward to really try and clean and push backwards as much as possible. That really gives me a nice body there. You can see how I get the lighter copper color tone in there, but it blends in with that olive by putting both fibers together, or materials. Okay, now I'm going to create a collar with my hen saddle again, and this is just a really good way to try and utilize as much of these feathers as possible. I'm just going to clear off this fuzz, palmer this again, and this is how I'm going to create kind of my collar pectoral fin area. Tie that in, and I'm just going to kind of trim it off. I do it this way versus trying to take and make, pull that out, it's alright. Versus tying in a pectoral fin with a hen feather. I just found this to be a little bit easier and is equally effective. So I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap this. Did it again. This one's not liking me today. Take my hackle plier and see if that gives me a little more control without pulling on it as much. So I'm going to palmer this hackle rearward as well, as best I can. I can clean this up. I want about 5 or 6 wraps on this. Lock it in. I'm just going to pull and push those backwards just like I did before. Trying to clean up any materials that I need to. You can see how that just kind of goes over and gives a little bit darker look there in the front before I put in the next step in this fly. So I'm just going to trim those fibers off that are just kind of bugging me there going over the hook eye. I'm going to create a dubby noodle here. Okay, I'm just going to make a nice noodle here. This is probably the hardest part of this fly. Okay, I'll set that there. I took some pine squirrel because I'm tying a size 8, and I put it in this Petitjean tool. Hides in the bottom side. Now I can take my Swiss CDC tool and capture that. Just like this. Okay. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to cut that hide strip off. I do like the Swiss CDC clip a little more than the Petitjean one, but the Petitjean one works awesome for capturing that strip. You could use a bread, or not a bread, a chip clip that you use to close your chip bags. Now I'm going to take and put some wax on this thread to help catch that pine squirrel. So you can see I've got it in there, nice little piece. Open it up, slide it in, close that down. You can see some of that didn't stay in there. See if I can put it back in. Now I'm just going to twist this. And every time I twist, I kind of let it twist, and then I let it run up in that right there. You can see how it's just twisted in there. Now I'm just going to brush it out just a little bit. Just make sure I get those fibers out nice and good. I use my rotary and just kind of get this started. Then I'm going to use both hands to palmer this. So as I'm wrapping it, I want to make sure and it doesn't require a whole ton of squirrel. And I don't want to crowd too far forward into that hook eye, because I want a nice even base to tie my strip in. So I'm just going to capture all that. And I'm going to kind of pull it backwards, lock it in, and clip this off. Now I'm just gonna push this rearward and see it's just forcing that back nice and good. You can see I've got a nice even base to tie in my strip, which will make it a lot easier when I get to this point. Okay, now I need to get a strip of pine squirrel, which, where did it go? There it is. So I don't buy the little packs, I buy these whole hides here. I'm going to pull one of these off. Now you can see the fibers flow rearward. I want to make sure when I tie this fly that the fibers are facing the back. I'm going to measure this out. I want 2 hook lengths of hide. So there's 1, and there's 2. So I'm just going to wet my finger. Okay, I got a nice little separation there, so I'm going to clip that out. That way I'm not getting the fibers in there. Now I'm going to measure where this back of my body is. And I'm going to separate that just the same. And this is just going to help me as I thread this hide and know where to put it on my hook. So now I've got it threaded and taken, invert that hook, put it back in the vise. I want to kind of wet those fibers down. Again, I'm going to kind of pull the material back. I want that strip to sit right on the very top here. This is where I'm just building a base to put some glue on to put my head. You can see now I've got a nice collar. It flows with the top side of my fly here, the collar and everything. So now I'm just going to take my helmet and make sure it's going to fit. I can squeeze that in, and I actually want to squeeze that in nice and snug, and that's going to help fill in any gaps. So I just make sure that I've got that before I put on my helmet and the super glue. So now I'm just going to whip finish this. I'm going to super glue that so the whip finish isn't, I don't have to do a ton. I'm just going to take some Loctite. It's got a little tiny brush on it, which makes it a little nice to just apply my super glue. You can use whichever one you want. Now I'm going to take and slide my head and set that in there. Just kind of hold it where I want it. Okay. You can see that I tie that nice and full. There's a little bit of gaps on the bottom, but not really much. It just looks like it's kind of the big head into the pectorals and everything else. So it works and looks really good. Now for the eyes. These come with the eyes in the package. Okay. So here's the eyes right here. I'm going to take my super glue again. Okay, and I'm just going to dab a little bit of glue in the eyeball there. I'm going to take a bodkin, and I use two bodkins. I have one that I use for soup like this, and one that I use when I use and do resin. And then I have another nicer bodkin I use for other applications. So we're going to take and slide that in. So that it sits nice and good. And repeat on this side. So if I'm tying this in a bigger size, I'm going to use rabbit zonker strips instead of using pine squirrel. Pine squirrel works in these smaller sizes, but honestly, if I'm tying a size 6 maybe, or even, definitely a size 4, I'm going to go to a rabbit with a little bit longer fur. But you can see, there we go. Now we're finished. You can clip this tail to a point there. I don't really find that I need to, and that's your Midnight Sculpin. You can see that underbelly here has a little bit different color, but it blends really nice, having that copper with that olive. Thank you for watching tonight and joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day. Make sure and hit the subscribe button, then the bell, and hit all so you can receive all notifications from us. And don't forget to hit thumbs up and comment on our post.